Hey guys, welcome back. Today I wanted to start a new series. I wanted to go ahead and talk about some of my guitars that I've purchased through the years. Kind of looking for that almighty tone. We'll probably do one of these, I don't know, every couple of weeks and just kind of see how it goes, culminating in what I would consider to be my number one. Now, what we have here today is a not stock um, 1993 Fender made in Japan hot rodded Stratocaster. And what makes that a hot rodded Stratocaster is pretty much the Floyd Rose. There were other models from Japan that did include the humbucker, kind of that fat Strat thing going on, but the hot rodded was the Floyd Rose. Now, there's a little bit of history that goes along with these guitars. So back in the 80s, early 80s, maybe even late 70s, there were other guitar brands in Japan that were making basically direct copies of the Fender Strat and, well, lots of other Fender guitars. And so there were, much like today with Gibson and a lot of other brands, there were lawsuits involved. And at the end of all that, ironically enough, Fender contacted one of those plants. They actually contacted two of them, but the one that predominantly made their guitars was the Fujigen factory in Japan. Now, coincident enough, that's also the plant that was making the majority of, namely the Ibanez guitars that were in that lawsuit. So basically, if you really think about it, Fender was like, hey, you know, we didn't really like that these guys were making our guitars, but fact is, you guys did a good job and you did it at a good price. So yeah, why don't we make some? I'm sure it didn't go quite like that, but you know. So back in the 80s, they actually made some really high-end Fender models. A lot of them were the kind of vintage series. So you were seeing like 60s Strats and Tellys and Jazzmasters and different basses. I mean, there's all kinds of different models. Some that I saw, I've never actually seen in the Fender catalog, which is kind of interesting. Up until about the late 80s, when you started seeing the Squier brand kind of jump apart from the Fender brand. They were making both series in Japan. And the Squiers were, cheaper components, but, made in the same factory, kind of, that kind of deal. And so, kind of fast forward to the 90s, they, instead of doing a made in Japan Fender and a made in Japan Squier, they did these, which this is a Fender made in Japan Squier series Stratocaster. And so kind of what that means is, number one, the woods are a little bit different. So instead of having an alder body or an ash body, you have a basswood body, which, okay, whatever, Ibanez uses that, so how bad can it be? The other thing that goes along with that is cheap components and cheap pickups. So the pickups that came in this guitar were a ceramic bar magnet, no-name pickup, just something obviously they made in-house and didn't, pay a whole lot of attention to. They were okay. I mean, when I bought it, I wasn't like, ugh, these things suck. But at the same time, I'd go to this guitar and I'd really like what I was getting, but then I'd go to something else. And all the things that I didn't like, namely, the real brittle high end that was coming out of this guitar that I really couldn't dial out with the amp, I wasn't getting in the other guitars. And, I knew from day one that this guitar was going to have cheaper pickups in it. I knew that I'd be putting different pickups in it. This was a $300 score, I think. Got it at a pawn shop. You don't hear about pawn shop deals, but, this is one of them. These aren't super expensive guitars. You can get them probably in the $500 to $700 range if you can find them. This one, it's got some dings and nicks, and whatever. And so, obviously the condition was considered a little bit poorer than some. And, they sold it to me basically super cheap. But I had never really planned on leaving this one alone. I mean, you've got a mid-90s, basically super Strat. I mean, honestly, I could change this pick guard out to a, humbucker or just a single humbucker or whatever I want to do. And so I can make this, just kind of a freaking 80s metal monster kind of thing if I really, really wanted to. But what I wanted to do was make a very rock and roll sounding guitar that was going to work for, kind of the praise and worship thing as well. And so I kept the humbucker single configuration, but I changed the pickups out. I changed the electronics out. I also had to buy a trem arm and the corresponding hardware, but that's another thing, and we'll get into that later. This is actually all going to change again. So I'm going to go ahead and put up pictures of what's going on inside this guitar. But what I ended up doing is I changed out the bridge humbucker to a Seymour Duncan JB. Now that is by and large my favorite, absolute favorite bridge humbucker pickup. It has that kind of old, kind of PAF humbucker kind of tone, but it's higher output. And, you kind of think, oh, well, that's kind of a strange idea when you're going, humbucker single, but whatever. But actually, these other two pickups are loud enough and crisp enough that they still cut through. I don't have to change anything volume wise. I don't have to hit any boosts or anything to really make these guys work in the mix. And they just work. They really just work. Now I am going to do another modification. I'm going to do a couple more modifications to this that'll make this make a little bit more sense. But going on with the pickups, these two are the Seymour Duncan SSL1 neck and middle. Now the middle is reverse wound, reverse polarity. And the reason for that is then you get that hum canceling when you are in the position 4 and when you're in the position 2. And so it'll be reverse polarity of this pickup, reverse polarity of this pickup. Works out great. And let's go ahead and check out Seymour Duncan's website and kind of tell you what these pickups are all about. The Seymour Duncan JB from Seymour Duncan's website themselves. The JB model humbucker is our most popular pickup of all time. Blues, country, fusion, punk, hard rock, grunge, thrash. The JB has always sounded just right, even as new genres emerge around it. The low end is full, powerful. The highs are crisp and detailed. There's an upper mid-range bump that adds crunch and chunk to heavy chords, but translates to a single vocal-like quality when you play single notes or solos. Meanwhile, the hot output pushes your amp just that little bit harder for more sustain and harmonics. When used with a 500K pot for a great high-end cut, try a 250K pot to sweeten or soften the tone. For smoother styles, it pairs particularly well with the Jazz or 59, and some players even like to use the JB in the neck for an extra fat solo tone. They are hand-built in Santa Barbara, California. They use an Alnico 5 bar magnet, silver bottom end plate, 4 conductor lead wiring for multiple wiring options like series, parallel, and split. They are vacuum wax potted for squeal-free performance and available in standard humbucker and trembucker spacing. which this one on this guitar is a trembucker, which I found out is the wrong pickup for this guitar. But you know what? That's okay. We'll deal with it. We'll deal with it. Let's see. EQ charts, blah, 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 blah. We don't need that. Now the SSL1, also known as the Vintage Staggered Strat. And staggered as in these pull pieces are staggered to change the output per string. It gives you, I guess, supposedly a more equal tone across the entire board. I don't know if that's true, but, you know, it is what it is. We're going to go back down to details. We won't read this whole thing. Again, these are Alnico 5s. They are great magnets. They're actually my favorite type of pickup, usually. And that'll be another video for another time. But Alnico 5s are kind of the way to go. They are, well, to kind of make a long story short on these pickups, they're wound in a way that gives you more of like a 50s tone versus a real modern Strat tone. And that's actually exactly what I was looking for. Okay, so the finish on these guitars, it looks really, really nice, especially on camera, I notice. However, this is a photo finish. And so that's kind of one of the things that they were doing with these Squier series guitars. It's a little funky, but it's basically, that's a sticker. This isn't a flamed anything. It doesn't have a cap. Again, it's just a basswood body. So that's kind of a downer. Whoever had this before me dinged it up pretty good. You know, it almost kind of looks like they intentionally were trying to make it look a little bit older, you know, distress it a little bit, but yeah, it didn't work out so well. So that's actually something that I'm kind of considering changing. One of my ideas is to do it's a white nitro finish, an aged white nitro finish that StewMac sells. And so I was kind of thinking about getting rid of this photo finish layer, getting down to bare wood, and then doing that with it. I don't know that it's really worth the time, but again, at the same time, I mean, it'd look really cool. That and a black pickguard I think would look awesome. I have a 3-way on switch, which what that will allow me to do is take this bridge humbucker and I can go full humbucker like normal. So your series humbucker. I can switch it to parallel, or I can switch it to single coil. And that's going to give me more of kind of, not really, but kind of your classic Strat sound. And so that's definitely in the works, whether I stay with this pick guard or if I end up going to a black one. Like I said, I've already replaced this trem arm one time. This guitar did not come with one. They are cheap on Floyd Rose's website. And the awesome thing is no matter which series of Floyd you have, be it the original, the special, the 1000. This is a Floyd Rose 2, which, I mean, it's kind of basically the same thing as the special. It's just kind of a cheaper made one. All the parts fit. And so which is the funniest thing. I've seen in so many videos where in the comment section, people are just fighting to the death that if you don't have that Floyd Rose original or there's one up above the original, I can't remember which one it is, but if you don't have one of those two, you are wasting your time. They're garbage. If it's Floyd Rose licensed, then it's even bigger garbage. It's junk. You should just get rid of it. No, it's really not. Floyd Rose, they kind of are what they are. They're made to the same spec, whether it's an Asian made one. I can't remember where they actually make them, probably China. Or if it's the German made ones, because if I remember right, Floyd Rose is actually a German company. Either way, they're made to the same spec and they use the same parts. And if you're dead set that some part on that Floyd Rose original is going to do you better, go ahead, replace all the parts. I mean, yeah, maybe there's something to like maybe the actual steel that they're made out of is higher quality in the originals in the upper line. And so those knife edges maybe last a little bit longer. Could be. I mean, it's a $230 gamble, something like that. But, we're getting a little off topic there. So one of the things that bugs me the most, I mean, even though I don't do all the crazy Floyd Rose things with this, I just use it as kind of a light trem effect. But one of the things that I can't stand is that after this moves back and forth a couple of times, it will tend to loosen up. Not always, but it will. And you get this. I don't know if that'll pick up on the mic, but you get, it's a clicking and it wiggles around inside there. It's loose. And you constantly, tighten it. And then it moves back and forth a couple times and it starts doing it again. And it probably won't do it for me because it's laying down on its back. It's probably something stupid it's got to be hanging on your shoulder, but I hate it. I absolutely hate that. And so in comes this guy. So had I have known, I would have done this to begin with. But for the same price as this trem arm, which comes with the actual mounting hardware. So, and that's something I replaced too. So this guy that the trem arm screws into, it is, it's just kind of a press in deal. Real simple. You can use a hammer if you want to be barbaric about it. I've done it before. Or you can get a screw or a bolt rather that fits through here and a socket or some kind of spacer and a couple of washers and a nut. And you can use that as a press tool. And so depending on which side you have that socket or spacer on, it's either going to be pulling it out this way or it's going to be pressing it down. It's real simple. You just put it on there, crank it a couple times, it pops loose, this guy comes out, you're good to go. So then this guy here has this, it's the same idea, only this one doesn't screw in. It's a push-in fit with an Allen screw to set your tension on it. Now, this will have to be played with a little bit. Okay, no big deal. It's got a bushing in here. This is a plastic bushing, and I'm gonna assume that this is gonna wear out every so often, but that piece is actually super cheap to get. This particular piece is actually the same price as this guy, but what I like about it is there's nothing in there. There's no, back and forth. And so it's kind of like, like the trem on the PRSs in that respect. You know, you just press it in, you're good to go. And I like that. I like that a lot. That's one of the things that I hate the most about screw-in trem arms. And one of the reasons why 9 times out of 10, if I'm playing this guitar live, I don't even have the trem bar on there. I just don't. It, you know, I like the feel of the bridge. I like the fine tuners. I played an Ibanez, Joe Satriani model for, you know, a few years in high school. And I got used to that bridge and how it felt. And I've always missed it. And that's kind of why I bought this to begin with. But yeah, this is something that I would definitely use more if that didn't annoy me so much. And so I think it was maybe $14. Maybe. I'll link that online. But real quick, easy mod, anybody can do. You know, the other thing with these guitars, well, really any guitar that has the basswood body, that's going to be most of your Ibanez guitars, a few other import guitars are real popular with the basswood body thing. Is this wood is kind of soft, and what happens is, especially primarily actually with your Floyd Rose equipped guitars, is where the what are they called, the inserts for these bridge posts, where they contact the body, eventually that kind of wears out and it kind of wobbles around. And so I first noticed mine was doing that when I saw this line was not straight here. The gap isn't straight. And at first I thought maybe it's the pick guard, but no, this post is actually moving around a little bit. And so one of the things I'm going to end up having to do is get in here. And I think first what I'm going to try is I'm going to screw out. I'm going to drill out the post holes here. Way bigger than they are right now. And I'm going to get some maple dowels. Yeah, probably maple. See what other hardwoods I can get a hold of, but a hardwood dowel nonetheless. And then I'll re-drill these. It's a bit of a nail biter because you gotta nail it. You absolutely have to nail it, or you're just gonna have trouble down the road. I mean, these have some room for playing around with the intonation, but not that much. Not enough to fix like a major error there. So that's something that we'll be tackling later on with this one, probably around the same time that we refinish it, provided that we do refinish it. And then the only other thing that has ever really annoyed me about this is the string bar. And now this is kind of a necessary thing. I see a lot of guys take them off their Floyd Rose guitars, but you end up breaking strings a lot more often without it. I mean, it's not a huge thing. It's a little bit of a huge thing because it kind of, the strings get bent down at a certain angle coming through here. And you want this bar to kind of hold them at that same angle or a little bit more. Otherwise it's kind of coming down and back up, and it just makes it so they want to break right there at that locking nut. So it's stupid close to this tuner. I hate it. There's nothing I can do about that, but what I can do is, so I don't have to have any wraps around this at all, switch these out for locking tuners. It's another $100. It is what it is. Now I'm going to go ahead and put pictures up for this, but you'll see in the wiring that I've done on this guitar, I switched everything out. Brand new pots, brand new switch, went high end on all of that. I did the cloth pushback wiring, which I just believe is far superior At least for wiring up guitars. I hate how some of the other wire, like just the shielding, melts immediately. Like there's no way to get a good solder joint without just deforming the heck out of that wire. And that doesn't happen with that cloth pushback wire. The other nice thing about it is you pull back the wire a little bit, you solder your end, and then you push that shielding back over it, and you're done. You don't have to worry about shorts and things like that. The other thing I did was I went ahead and shielded the entire cavity. That was to get rid of some of the noise out of these two pickups. That was one of the things with the original wiring that I really, really disliked, was that it was noisy. Not so bad straight into the interface, but man, through a tube amp, they were noisy. Yeah. And so between that and, gosh, they just had something in the high end that just killed me. I already mentioned, but, and I know that there's guys out there that'll tell you pickups don't matter. By the time it hits front of house, it's all going to sound the same. Pickups don't matter. Well, it matters. Especially with the cleaner tones, it matters. And I don't care what it sounds like front of house. I mean, I care. I care what the audience hears. But if it don't sound right on stage, if there's something going on there, it changes the way you play. If you don't like the tone, you hold back. If you love the tone, you play. You actually play. And so, I don't care what any other influencer or anybody else says. Man, if you don't like your pickups, man, that's your guitar. Change the pickups. Just change them. I mean, you're investing in this instrument. Everything you do is a personalization. And, most of us, we don't buy an instrument to trade it out, in a year or 2 years. We buy it and we want to make it our own, and, do what you want to do. All right, guys, what are your opinions on the great pickup debate? Is it worth modding your guitars? Go ahead and leave your comments down below. And as always, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.